Hey boys and girls, this is chapter 16 and it's a pretty short one. We know a lot's going on with our characters. We know that Dr. Barnes is the character that kind of seems to be wanting to get some trouble started. We know that Kara's had to make some tough decisions. And we know that Mr. Larson's being a good teacher right now. He's actually getting the students to really think for themselves. Alright, chapter 16, let's see what happens. Salvage crew inspects wreckage. On the Monday after the 9th edition came out, Mr. Larson got a large brown envelope from Dr. Barnes, hand-delivered to him before school by Mrs. Cormier, just in case he forgot to check his mailbox in the office. There were 2 items in the envelope. The first was a copy of a letter from Dr. Barnes to the school superintendent and each of the 7 members of the school board. It requested an emergency meeting concerning a disciplinary proceeding against Mr. Carl Larson. The letter stated that Mr. Larson allowed the attached article to be published in a classroom newspaper under his supervision, and over 300 copies were distributed throughout the school and community. Other phrases in the letter included lack of professional judgment, disregard for individual privacy, unprofessional behavior, inappropriate use of school resources, and insensitivity to community values. A photocopy of the 3rd page of the 9th edition of the Landry News was stapled to the letter with the story about the divorce circled. The second item in the envelope was a letter to Mr. Larson from Dr. Barnes, informing him of the intended disciplinary action. The letter told Mr. Larson that this would be a public hearing and he might want to have his own lawyer present at the meeting. The secretary of the teachers' union at the school had been informed about the hearing. Dr. Barnes also reminded Mr. Larson that, if he wished, he could choose to resign. If he resigned, there would be no need for disciplinary proceedings. He could quietly retire, and that would be the end of it. Dr. Barnes ended the letter by saying that publication of the Landry News must cease immediately. Mr. Larson slumped back in his chair, his long arms hanging limp at his sides. He felt as if he'd been kicked in the stomach. The threat of losing his job was certainly real. Ever since Dr. Barnes arrived at Denton 7 years ago, Mr. Larson had known that it was only a matter of time before something like this happened. And Mr. Larson thought, maybe I deserve this. I've been a rotten teacher, more like half a teacher, for a long time now. Maybe this school will be a lot better off without me. I've probably got this coming. But Carl Larson was absolutely sure of one thing. The kids did not deserve this one little bit. The Landry News had become something wonderful, and the thing that hurt him the most was that because of his problems, not the kids' problems, Dr. Barnes was going to use this innocent little newspaper as the whip to send him packing. But sitting there on his chair in his cluttered room, Mr. Larson turned a corner. He forgot about his own problems. He began to think about how he could protect his students from the ugliness of this situation. He wanted to be sure that not one of them was harmed or upset in any way. As he began to think about the kids, all the heaviness and burden seemed to drop away. Then all at once, Mr. Larson got an idea, and he sat bolt upright in his chair. And the thought that formed clearly in his mind was incredibly simple. It was a plan that would protect all the kids, and it would protect him, and it might even protect Dr. Barnes as well. And one word summed up the whole solution: teach. The newest copy of the Landry News lay there on his desk next to the letters from Dr. Barnes. Mr. Larson looked from one to the other, and he smiled. Everyone else could get as upset and angry and worried as they wanted to, but he was not going to worry. Why? Simple. Because his kids were going to see this whole thing as one large, exciting, learning experience about the First Amendment and the freedom of the press. And who was going to transform this mess into a thing of educational beauty? Mr. Larson, teacher. So we see at the end of this chapter that Mr. Larson is not only a teacher, but he's a good teacher, a teacher that cares about his students. And instead of being angry and just kind of forgetting the whole thing, he's going to turn this into a major lesson for his students about the Bill of Rights and about the freedom of the press. It's always good when you get to experience something to learn about it. All right, can't wait for our next chapters. See you soon. Bye.